Sophie Scholl was born on May 9, 1921, in Forchtenberg, Germany, to Robert Scholl, a liberal politician and Nazi critic, and Magdalena Müller, a devout Lutheran. She had 5 siblings: Inga, Hans, Elisabeth, Werner, and Tilde. Sophie grew up in a loving and intellectual family that encouraged her to pursue her interests in art, philosophy, and theology. She initially joined the Hitler Youth movement as a teenager, but soon became disillusioned with its ideology and propaganda. She was influenced by her brother Hans, who was arrested for his involvement in an anti-Nazi youth group, and by her father Robert, who openly expressed his dissent against Hitler. In 1942, Sophie enrolled at the University of Munich, where she studied biology and philosophy. There, she met other students who shared her anti-Nazi views, such as Christoph Probst, Alexander Schmorell, and Willy Graf. Together with her brother Hans, they formed a secret resistance group called the White Rose, which used various methods to spread their message of opposition to the Nazi regime. They wrote and printed leaflets that denounced the atrocities of the Nazi regime and called for passive resistance from the German people. The leaflets were written by Hans Scholl and Professor Kurt Huber, a philosophy teacher at the university. Sophie helped to copy, distribute, and mail the leaflets across Germany. She also painted graffiti such as "Freedom" and "Down with Hitler" on the walls of public buildings. The White Rose had a clear and noble goal: to overthrow the Nazi dictatorship and restore democracy and human rights in Germany. They believed that every German had a moral duty to resist the evil regime that had brought war, genocide, and oppression to Europe and the world. They hoped to inspire a mass uprising of the German people against Hitler and his followers. They also sought to establish contacts with other resistance groups in Germany and abroad. They faced many dangers and difficulties in their activities, such as censorship, surveillance, and betrayal. They knew that they risked their lives for their cause, but they did not give up their hope for a free and democratic Germany. The White Rose's message was expressed in 6 leaflets that they wrote between June 1942 and February 1943. The leaflets contained quotes from classical literature, philosophy, theology, and history to support their arguments. Some of the quotes were, "Nothing is so unworthy of a civilized nation as allowing itself to be governed without opposition by an irresponsible clique that has yielded to base instinct. We will not be silent. We are your bad conscience. The White Rose will not leave you in peace. Every word that comes from Hitler's mouth is a lie. Why do you allow these men who are in power to rob you step by step, openly and in secret, of one domain of your rights after another? Do not forget that every nation deserves the government that it endures. We will not be silent. We are your bad conscience." On February 18, 1943, Sophie and Hans were caught by a janitor while throwing leaflets from a balcony at the university. They were arrested by the Gestapo and interrogated for 4 days. They confessed to their involvement in the White Rose and tried to protect their friends from prosecution. They were put on trial before the People's Court, a Nazi kangaroo court that sentenced them to death for high treason. They were executed by guillotine on February 22, 1943, along with Christoph Probst. They were only 21 and 24 years old, respectively. Their execution shocked and saddened many people who knew them or heard about them. Some of their fellow students and professors attended their funeral and paid tribute to their courage. Their families received letters of condolence from strangers who admired their sacrifice. Their leaflets were smuggled out of Germany by Scandinavian students and reprinted by Allied forces. The 6th leaflet was dropped over Germany by British planes in July 1943 under the title "The Manifesto of the Students of Munich." Their legacy inspired other resistance groups and individuals to continue their fight against Nazism. Sophie Scholl is remembered as one of the most courageous and inspiring figures of the German resistance against Nazism. She has been honored with numerous monuments, streets, schools, and awards named after her. Her life story has been depicted in several books, films, and plays. Her last words before her execution were, "How can we expect righteousness to prevail when there is hardly anyone willing to give himself up individually to a righteous cause? Such a fine, sunny day, and I have to go. But what does my death matter if through us thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action?"